Okay, ladies and gentlemen, Jeremy Smith at Photog J the Great here once again. We're going to take a closer look at the controls now on the 5D3. Let's see here. I am cameraman and presenter as usual here. Okay, get that in focus. Okay, so there we go. Alrighty, we'll start over on this side of the camera body. The thing that I like the most about this is it's mostly still the same. I like it when the camera companies improve on things but still don't just completely change everything up. So over on this left hand side here, you'll notice that things are pretty much the same. You have your microphone input and your flash sync port here, PC port. So when your pocket wizards suddenly stop working, if that ever happens, you can just plug in a sync cord, which is nice. And then of course you have your remote terminal jack there. On the right side though is where you see quite a bit of change. Over here you actually now have a headphone jack, which is really nice if you're going to record video, because you can actually monitor your audio levels. And then of course you've got your USB port. Sadly, just like on the Nikon D4, it's not USB 3. I really wish it were. I don't recommend using your camera as a card reader. I don't recommend plugging it in to transfer your images to your computer that way. But if you're shooting tethered, to like Aperture or Lightroom, USB 3 would have been really nice for that. The images would come up faster on your screen when you're shooting tethered and that sort of thing. But anyways, it's not that big of a deal, but unfortunately, sadly, no USB 3. Of course, you've got your HDMI out right there as well. Of course, it's a mini type. That goes. Okay, so over on this side, of course, we've got a couple different new buttons here. They've given us a button here for like your picture styles and things like that, but of course it has a couple of options under that menu that it brings up. First thing, of course, is the picture styles. You do have a multiple exposure option, and then the new HDR option. Whenever me and Rightway Photo do our more in-depth reviews on this, we're going to do a little comparison between this and the Nikon D800. We're going to go into a lot more of this in more detail. I know that he's been playing with the HDR option particularly a lot here lately. So anyways, but that's what that does. There is also a rate button right here, which is really nice. I've wished that I could do something like this on a camera for quite some time now. Whenever you're shooting, if you're shooting shooting something and you say, man, okay, I like this photo right here, I want to save it. I want to be able to know which one it was. I want to flag it and come back to it. Of course, if you're shooting tethered into a software, if you're shooting into Lightroom, for example, you could apply a flag to the image that way. But if you're not shooting tethered, more on location work and things like that, you wouldn't have the ability to actually flag those files. So having the ability to go in here and give your files a rating on the camera quickly and easily is a nice thing. Of course, playback and delete, nothing particularly special there. The little Canon Q button, which allows you to go through some of the options here. Once you press that, you can actually use your dials to actually go through everything and select different options as far as white balance and continuous shooting and metering and so forth. So that's nice. Canon's little multi-controller seems to be slightly different on this camera. Unlike on the 5D2 and a lot of the other Canons, it actually seems to have some weather sealing, almost the way it does on the 1D series of cameras, which is kind of nice. There's a little bit of a seal back there, so I never considered the 5D Mark II build quality to be poor, but any improvements are nice, I suppose. Moving over here, we do have dual card slots, CF and SD, which is nice whenever you have a camera that you're gonna that you can do video and stills with. It's nice to have those separate from each other, so that's a very nice thing. Okay, then of course our battery here. It is still the same battery that's on the 5D Mark II and the 70 and also the 60D. You know, the Canon LPE6 battery. So same there. So that's a good thing if you are upgrading from the 5D Mark II, or if you're going to still use this camera alongside your 5D Mark II or your 60D or 70D. It's one less battery to carry around. So that's certainly a good thing. If I can put the battery in the camera. There we go. So that's a nice thing about that as well. The menu system is very similar to the current Canon models. I did notice a couple things that are different. Let's see, if we press our info button, we can go through here. You actually have Canon's leveler here, which is nice. That's a nice feature to have, I suppose. If you're doing landscapes and things like that, it can come in very useful. So you've got that adjustment. A couple things to notice though in the menus that's different. There's a lot more options in here in regards to the focus system. The first menu on the focus system options actually allows you to customize the focus for different types of moving subjects. So you can see here, you can go through different example cases here. I'm going to have to get into a little bit more detail with this and kind of see how this works in actual real world use. So you have that option there on the first menu though. Going over to your second menu, you have a priority setting for your AI servo settings. By the way, what's up with all the Canon users saying AL servo? I can never figure that out. Anyways, it's AI. Anyways, okay. But right here, you can set the camera more towards release or focus priority. On focus priority, it's going to actually try to be sure to get the shot in focus before the camera will fire. On release priority, it's going to just have a tendency to fire more regardless of whether the camera is in focus or not. So that's your option there. The thing that's interesting about this though is the fact that you can set it up different ways for your first and your second shot, which I didn't quite get that at first, but after I thought about it, it actually makes sense. Because if you want to be sure to get that first shot in the frame, in the sequence, in good shot focus, but then after that you just want to be able to shoot more frames, then having the ability to set the first frame different from the others could be very useful. So I think that's a pretty cool setup. Let's see here. AF assist beam. That's one thing, by the way, that I still don't understand on some of the Canon models, including this 5D Mark III, is why it doesn't have a... I don't understand why it does not have a AF illuminator. I could never quite get that. This option right here allows you to adjust that for speed lights. I can never figure out why they don't have a focus assist beam on the camera body. Let's see here, that. This option right here is very cool too, this orientation linked AF point. If you go in here and actually turn it, by default it's on this top setting here, but if you turn it on to the separate, or select separate AF points, you can actually have the camera set up. You can have the autofocus point set differently for the camera in the vertical and horizontal positions. So like if you're shooting a bunch of shots horizontally and you have your focus point moved to one position, if you have the camera set on this bottom menu option here, whenever you rotate the camera, it actually becomes possible to set the focus points differently for your vertical position, and then whenever you turn the camera horizontal again, it actually goes back to the horizontal position. So you can have your, if you're shooting a combination of vertical and horizontal images, like in sports or wedding photography or something like that, as you switch between vertical and horizontal positions, you're not having to find yourself you're not having to find yourself moving the focus points around a lot just because you change shooting positions. So I thought that was a very, very nice feature. Let's see here. What else did I find interesting on this? Of course, lens micro adjustment. And of course, as I shoot with this camera more, I will find more things, no doubt. The other thing that I thought was very, very nice on this is on previous Canons you had to go up to the 1D series to actually be able to make custom file names, and on this one that's not the case, so I'm very happy about that. You can actually go in here. Let's see here. You can actually go in here and you can change it to a custom file name. So like on all my cameras they say, JSP, for Jeremy Smith Photography on the file name there. So it's nice that Canon actually gives you the ability to do something, or to do that on a camera that's not in the 1D series. So that's something that I thought was very, very nice as well. And so yeah, I will definitely find more things about this camera I like. Focus systems or the focus adjustment options are very okay. As I was saying here, before that video clip ended, moving on to the focus system, just like pretty much all the other Canons, you press your focus selector button there, and you get your menu button here, or your AF menu here. Just like on the 7D, you press the multifunction button up here by the shutter release just after you press this button, and that actually allows you to go between your different area modes. So you have a few different options here. Spot AF, you have your just one point, and then you have your expanded AF area. That's dynamic area to all you Nikon users. And then you have your expanded AF area, which is dynamic area basically with more points. You have the zone AF, which allows you to, there's not really anything that compares to that in Nikon per se. It's a little bit different, but you can basically just select by zone like that. And then of course you have your auto area, which is something that I really don't recommend anyone use, honestly. There's not really ever much use for that. But anyways, you've got your options there like that. One thing I like about this a lot is how it shows the cross-type sensors. So as you're actually changing through your modes here, all these columns of sensors that are flashing like that, the ones that are flashing are your non-cross-type sensors. So the ones in these, if it'll stay on screen, the ones in these three areas here are going to be your cross-type sensors. So that's something that I'm glad that they show, which is very, very nice. Quick note about this. I did notice that, and of course I may be wrong on this because I haven't played with this as much as I'd like to, but so far I cannot find any way to change focus points without pressing this button first. Now on the 5D Mark II there's a custom function menu option that actually allows you to change focus points just by directly moving your multi-selector here without actually having to press this button first before you move the points around. Interestingly enough, I noticed that that was the case on the 7D, and so far it appears to be the case on the 5D Mark III as well. It's not that big of a deal to press this button and then move the focus points around first, but me and my Nikon ways, I'm used to being able to just reach up and hit my multi-selector and move points without having to press another button first. So that's just one thing that's noteworthy there. All the controls up top here are very Canon like. very usual there. Nothing particularly new as far as your white balance and autofocus and drive and ISO. The only other thing that I noticed on this camera so far, of course, it comes in play when you go to your metering options. On the spot meter on this camera, there's actually a spot metering circle inside the viewfinder. On Nikon, your spot meter is tied to your autofocus points. So if I were changing focus points on a Nikon and I move the focus point over like this, then I would get spot metering off this particular focus point. If I move it over here, I'd get it off this point, right? Well, on Canon, even on this 5D III, we still have the same scenario where the spot meter is still just the center portion of the frame. It doesn't move with the focus points. So that's something that I wish Canon would have changed on the 5D III. However, depending on how you shoot, it may not be that big of a deal. But anyways, looks like a very solid camera so far. Look for more information very soon. I'm going to be doing a lot more shooting with this camera. If anyone has any questions, just write me something in the comments and let me know. And until we have the full review online, yeah, definitely just write me if you have any questions. Once again, this has been Jeremy Smith at Photog J. Follow me at Photog J the Great, rather. Follow me on Twitter. Look me up on Facebook. Send me a message if you have any questions. Take care.